Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Aldoa Edge. I'm going to give another 30 seconds to see if some other folks trickle in. But it's good to see some familiar faces and some repeat guests from the first episode. So thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you found some value there. Give it just another 5 seconds. But I appreciate everyone joining, and I see some folks entering now. Kathy, it's great to see you again. Thanks for tuning in. We'll get started in just about 30 seconds. Jose, thank you for coming in. Yeah, and excited to get the chance to talk to you. Sherman, I see you as well. Thanks for coming in. Felipe, thank you for coming in. Thanks for tuning in to the Aldoa Edge. Eli and Frank, I see you both as well. All right, we got some turnout. I guess seeing as it's 3 past the hour, we'll get started. Thanks everyone for joining. I'll jump right into it. Last time on the Aldoa Edge, and again, this is our second episode, I spoke about sort of the takeaways from our conversations with thousands of professional consulting engineering firms. And I discussed the 5 major buckets of pain that business owners felt while running their firms, both from an administrative perspective, right, as well as from the perspective of front office workflows and the manual processes that are slowing down field techs, staff engineers, staff scientists, project managers from doing the job at hand and delivering quality results to your clients on time and within budget. And just to quickly recap that, the 5 sort of buckets of pain that we identified from, again, quite literally thousands of conversations with consultants and engineers were focused around project management, financial management on a project by project basis, collecting data in the field, writing and generating reports, oftentimes using the data that was collected in the field, and then interacting with both your clients and your subcontractors. And today, as sort of a first deep dive into one of those sections, I want to do a deep dive into, what I would argue is probably the most overlooked section, which is project management. And part of the reason I say this is the most overlooked is because a lot of businesses, business owners say to themselves, this is why I hire a project manager. And seeing as they employ, someone or multiple people whose sole job is to manage projects, they don't often appreciate how impactful establishing best practices can be and having good systems in place around project management. Again, not everyone feels this way, clearly, because we put this as one of the 5 major causes of pain for consulting and engineering businesses. And that conclusion was derived exclusively from real conversations. But on that note, let's kick things off. Let's just dive in and talk about sort of some of the major concerns that business owners, operators, project managers, whoever it may be, that the concerns they have when it comes to project management, because these practices can have a real significant impact, not just on firm profitability or reliability, but also actually the ability for your company to grow. So I'm going to just dive in, sort of talk about some of the basics first. I'd say there's this big category of, we'll call it the basics of project management that always come up. And the traditional complaints we hear are, I have no idea where to find this information on a project by project basis, right? Every PM is doing it his or her own way. There are no standardized templates. Every budget looks different. Every field report looks different. Every final deliverable has, that charm and those specific nuanced tweaks of a specific project manager, depending on who the project team is, right? Going along this line, we hear about difficulty tracking down files, especially in unorganized folders, right? So that pain is especially apparent when a client is calling you and saying, hey, you were supposed to send this to me yesterday. What's the number? and you can't track down the file or the information. And along that same point of having these sort of static Excel files or Word files, you have no idea whether that data is up to date or not, right? And that's one of the problems. You can see sort of the last edited on the file itself, but actually knowing for certain when these files were updated or if it's the latest data is a real problem. And given that sort of backdrop of complaints, one of the, easy to say solutions, and again, just to reiterate, I'm going to try and give solutions that aren't just software based. Aldoa, we are a software company. We sell verticalized software that was custom built for consultants and engineers. But I want to give some feedback tips from our conversations with customers that don't require you spending a single dollar on software. So I'm going to give you both. I'm going to tell you ways to improve your business from the get-go, no sort of cost associated with it, and also some ways that software can help. And towards the end of this conversation, if you tune in, I'll give a quick little demo of exactly what's going on in our software and see how it can help. And I apologize if there's any background noise. I got the microphone hooked up, but I do live in New York City, so we get some sirens every once in a while. So talking about sort of solutions that don't involve any software, right? Set up some best practices as an organization. And a few of those are pretty simple. So first of all, standardization across every project, despite the team, is very important. And as a project manager, business owner, whatever it may be, start to enforce the rules. Have a dedicated folder per project and have a consistent folder structure across every project. So when you log in, you know that you open up the project and the most left-hand folder is field notes. The middle folder within that project is deliverables, and on the right is sort of deadlines and milestones, right? Just having some standardization across the project is something that will be incredibly impactful. And it seems so small, but these little paper cuts add up to some real big pain. Along those lines, adopt company-wide templates and make every PM follow those templates. It's not that difficult to have a specific budget template, right? Or a specific sort of project deliverable tracking template in Excel. And if you are a business owner or a PM, and you know that every time you open up this document, you know exactly where to look for the information, that is a small tip that can be incredibly impactful for your business. One other piece on that is have a comment or tell your staff, yourself, and do this yourself as well. Keep a comment on the top of every document with a last edited date. Just have this updated field. It can be, cell A1 in Excel that says last edited February 20th, 2025. And therefore, there's no confusion of, hey, is this data, does this include the most recent soil boring logs? Like, is this after we did the Sanborn map evaluation? It shouldn't matter if you can track exactly when that data is being updated. Now, of course, I will say a lot of these problems are only problems because your business is relying too much, candidly, on Microsoft Suite. That's what it always comes down to, is relying too much on Microsoft Word, Excel, Project, and Outlook. And one of the benefits of cloud-based project management software, right, is that everything with regards to standardization is taken care of for you without putting in this effort. So you can maintain consistent budget templates. You can maintain a constant format for field notes, all in one place. So your staff doesn't need to know sort of which folder to track things down in. You have this one central login, cloud-based, where all of your data lives, and every employee knows exactly where to look for the data they need. You don't need to track down siloed documents and scattered folders again. So that is sort of, again, I'm trying to give tips that you can use in your business today without making any changes to technology. But I will say that over the long run, it really helps to have sort of this tech stack that was custom built for your business in order to make some of these, I'll call it like back office or administrative problems, disappear. And again, let's focus this and ground this conversation in what is really important, which is, I would argue, profitability, reliability of your work, and the ability to grow as a company. If all of these administrative small paper cuts, as I call them, are taken care of, that is just more time that you can use to grow the business, do a little bit more business development, send out that additional proposal, bill an extra 2 hours a week, right? And we talk about sort of cost efficiency and is it worth it for software? And what we always like to do is just talk about the ROI. And again, we are realists. We understand that if you can cut down 10 hours of administrative work every week, that doesn't mean that that's a one-to-one sort of conversion to billable hours. It's not, hey, I bill at 150 an hour. I save 10 hours of unbillable work. That means I'm making $1,500 extra a month, but it could be a 50% conversion. You could feel more confident to sort of take on that new project. And rather than, an additional 1,500 of revenue a month per employee, you get 750. That pays for itself. That pays for software 7 times over for the most part. So just want to sort of ground things with an ROI discussion whenever possible. But jumping back to different sort of problems, right? I think one big problem is the tracking of milestones, deadlines, and submission due dates. And this is another one which I think a lot of companies overlook because they have this system that works. And that system is usually Excel files. And you remember to update your Excel files. I'll give an example of, we do a lot of work in New Jersey, right? And again, we sell software to professional consultants, engineers, land development, survey companies across the country. But specifically in New Jersey, these businesses have their hands full, especially in the environmental world. There are a ton of sort of time frame submission deadlines that change rapidly. And most people have these huge Excel files that have 5 to 50 projects, all with the different submission windows. And what these companies are doing is that because these Excel files are static by nature, right? They don't interact with other software. It just creates double entry. You are having to go into your Excel file, find the dates for submission, go into Outlook, and create reminders and events for when those submissions are due. And one of the great things about software is that when you can find a solution that is fully integrated with your tech stack, right? So for an example, us at Aldoa, we integrate with Microsoft Outlook. We also send email reminders directly to your inbox at customizable dates before submissions are due. So when nothing is static and when information in one place changes and it propagates to the rest of your tech stack, that is incredibly helpful. We have talked to so many businesses where, again, it's just they forgot to create an Outlook reminder for that task or that project submission, and they miss it. And their client gets pissed. And sometimes when it's in a regulatory environment, you get fined as well. So again, some of these small things that you think you have under control until you don't, it's worth it. And again, just giving the example of in the New Jersey compliance world, in this environmental regime, which we've been spending a good amount of time and where we sort of got our start as a company, we have spoken to some licensed site remediation professionals, some LSRPs in New Jersey, where they've been faced, or their clients have faced $15,000 fines for missing, remedial action report deadline. And something like that really makes you stop and think, hey, when I look at software that could be, a couple of $100 a month for my business, and I'm trying to sort of justify that cost, just keep in mind that one of these fines is 10 years of software subscription. It can be quite substantial. I know not everyone on this call today, I know for a fact, I see some of you who are in, Florida and California. I know not all of you are in New Jersey. You don't get fined tens of thousands of dollars, but it's really sort of just keeping that good reputation with your client, right? Knowing that you are going to be on time and deliver quality results allows you to get that repeat business. So it might be worth a bit of investment if you are struggling with some of the problems that I'm talking about. If not, props to you, and I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email at adam@aldoa.com and tell me about sort of the best practices that you've been implementing in your business so that you are not struggling with missing deadlines. But for a lot of folks that are using and relying on Microsoft Suite to do this, we know it's a problem. We're trying to solve that. But there are some best practices, as we've talked about, to get in front of that without having to adopt new software as well. Let's move on to the next problem. And again, just as a reminder, I'll talk about maybe 1, 2 more problems. Then I'll give a quick little overview of some software solutions that can help. I'll give you a glimpse into Aldoa, show you how it looks when you have all your project data in one place. I think this last, and I'll make this sort of the last problem, I think, is sort of related. Well, it is capacity planning and resource management. And the importance of knowing when your staff is busy or available to take on new work, I cannot sort of stress enough how important that is. And again, I like to frame everything with regards to profitability, reliability of your work, and then the ability to grow. This piece is really focused around the ability to grow as a business. And we've talked to firms that once they sort of implement these resource management tooling, and it can be as simple as using a scheduler and tracking how many hours a day your employees are working. We've heard comments from business owners that they've been able to grow their top line revenue for the business up to 30 to 40% just by knowing when they are available to take on new work. And that's really substantial. And I think that this is one of these PM sort of tools that a lot of companies don't use, right? And when we're talking about tracking milestones, everyone has Excel. Everyone has folders. Everyone has Outlook or some sort of calendar system where you're tracking these deadlines. For the resource management piece, a lot of businesses use nothing. And they are just doing this off of conversations. They have a Monday meeting and they say, "Hey, Steve, how's your week looking? You available to take on new work?" And that sort of nonchalant attitude, and again, sometimes that works. If you're trying to run a comfortable, lifestyle business, 5 to 10 employees, something small where you are making a living and your employees are happy, there is no shame about that. We talk to a lot of customers who are very comfortable with that. But again, if you are trying to grow the business and be competitive and know when you have the capacity to take on new work, resource management is incredibly powerful. And again, this is something where I gave the example of talking to Steve in that Monday morning meeting and saying, "Hey, how's your schedule looking over the next sort of 5 days? You available to take on new work?" In an ideal world, you can be doing this a month in advance because we all know that you just can't snap your fingers and take on more business, right? You have to write that proposal. You have to do that work. You have to do the business development to actually get introduced to new clients, right? Or to go to your existing clients and say, "We have the capacity to take on new work." It requires a bit of lead time, but even knowing sort of 2 weeks, 4 weeks in advance, like my field techs, my field staff are scheduled for these projects for 4 hours a day, 8 hours a day. I can look at Stacy, one of my project managers, and I can see in 2 weeks, she has nothing on her plate. She's done with her sort of quick turnaround project. She has a few PCAs, phase 1, some due diligence stuff for some lenders coming up over the next 2 weeks. And then she's fully open. Let's go proactively look for more work and be able to grow the business proactively versus reactively. I'd say that's a really, really big piece of things. And so I know I just said there's sort of, that was going to be the last point. One final point, which I'm just thinking of right now, which is a common complaint. It could be a separate bucket from project management, but most people we talk to sort of lump this in. It has to do with just sort of tracking information, but specifically as it relates to client and subcontractor information. And again, I'd sort of lump this into the bucket of CRM, right? Which is a pretty hot topic nowadays of knowing where to find all of your client information. And I think when I bring up the conversation of using or leveraging a CRM for your business, a a lot of business folks who I talk to in the space are saying, I looked at Salesforce. It was $25,000 a year for me to track my work and sort of track proposals. We would never pay for a business like that or a software like that. And I agree. I think that's overkill. But there are some really sort of low hanging fruit that you can take advantage of, such as having a central place to know where to find all of your client information, phone numbers, mailing addresses, notes. You can sort of, again, one of the benefits of having an integrated solution like Aldoa is if you plan to do billing out of a system, you can look up a client and see, okay, what were the last 10 invoices I sent them? What's overdue, paid on time? Which projects are they associated with? Let me run a report on which sort of active projects are still running by client, by time period, et cetera. So I'm not suggesting going and spending the cost of half of a full-time staff on just a CRM solution, but there are some really powerful benefits of just having a central location to track all of your information. So you don't have to go to your PM and say, hey, what's the phone number for that driller? Or, I've tried to call the client 6 times, they're not picking up. It's because your point of contact left the company 3 months ago and you have a new phone number. So we do hear that a lot, something really low hanging fruit, right? So I guess given those sort of insights, and I've tried to make this as intuitive as I can for not making it just like a pitch for new software, but just some best practices that you can institute at your company today of being a little bit more up to date and understanding exactly what's going on in your projects in real time. And again, this will help your profitability, your reliability, as well as your ability to grow as a company, right? So I want to very quickly give a little view into Aldoa, and I'm going to share my screen. And again, I'm going to make this pretty quick, keep it 5-10 minutes. And I wanted to just show what it could be, what your business could look like of having one central place to log in for all of your project information, right? Now, there are a lot of project management softwares on the market. What I would implore of anyone on this call or anyone listening to this recording after the fact is that you do your homework on your system. Look at Capterra reviews and software reviews. Ask for a referral. Say, hey, you're marketing yourself to my industry. Let me talk to another engineer or consultant who uses this, right? And I think what you'll find for a lot of these companies is that they say that they were built for your market. They say, hey, this is project management software for consultants and engineers. And then you go to their website and you see 20 testimonials from IT consultants, right? Or software engineering teams. And to build software for different industries, it's probably it's a compelling business model. Doesn't always work for your market, right? So just keep that in mind. But again, I'm going to give a very, very brief sort of overview of Aldoa, the platform. And you can see when I log in for the first time, I can see a list of all of my projects right here on the homepage, right? I can log in and within one click, I can see project names, numbers, who my client is, addresses. I can customize my project types so I can do additional sorting and reporting. So for example, if I have a multidiscipline engineering firm and I do site civil, I do structural, I do geotechnical, I do environmental consulting, I can run reports and run project teams across these different departments. Now, if I just jump into one of these projects, let me jump into this Shelter Haven engineering project. Again, you can see sort of I'm in the project. It took 2 seconds to jump in, and all of my notes are structured right here. I can see my clients. I can see descriptions. I can see sort of upcoming deadlines and notes. I have a task management system, which I'll get into in a second, which allows me to track upcoming deadlines, milestones with reminders that automate and with a connection to Microsoft Outlook. I have Google Maps integration. I can see sort of a real-time view of the property. I can build out my project team and decide who has access to this project, And again, I'm not going to go through everything here because I want to make this fairly high level. But you can see we tried to build this as intuitively as possible for consultants and engineers. Because one of the, I'd say, the deadly sins is having really complicated software that requires a month for people to even know what's going on in it. We want to, again, the whole genesis of this conversation is cut down on that administrative non-billable time, focus at the real job at hand. So we want this to not add to any sort of administrative burden. When you log in for the first time, all of your information on the left-hand side is associated with this project, right? I can see basic info where I can build out my project team. I can add these descriptions and accounting notes, right? I can see my property. I can leave description of my property and any, topographical, geological information, neighboring properties, etc. I talked a little bit about the CRM side of things. Again, a lightweight CRM is often exactly what your business needs. I can track my clients. If I have multiple clients, I can track who's my billing contact, who's my on-site contact. I can track my subcontractors. And again, I won't go too much into the financial side of things, but you can also build budgets directly in the application. You can have consistent budget templates, lump sum, time and materials, whatever it is, without having to sort of make sure that everyone's using the same thing. I mentioned the task side of things. This is a really powerful tool, very simple as well, that allows you to create tasks with deadlines and reminders and push those to Microsoft Outlook. So for example, I can jump into this task. This is the engineering design report. I can see what priority it is, who it's assigned to at my company. If I want other people to be able to see this, I can just add James to the watchers list so they can get notified of what happens with this task. I can leave notes here, leave descriptions. You can set sort of start times. You can include attachments. So again, you don't have to sort of track down that deliverable or that Word document. It just lives in their software. And again, I can leave reminders. So I can say, hey, remind me of this task. Again, let me find a task that isn't overdue so I can set up the reminder. So let's make this task. Today's February 20th. I'll say this is due on the 28th, right? When I open up this task, I can say, hey, remind me one day before. I also want to be reminded a week before, right? Done. I will get notified in the application as well as in my email inbox directly a day before this is due and a week before this is due. This is something really helpful, and it's totally passive. And it just, hey, let's say I'm working on 20 projects concurrently. This is a really powerful way for me to get information without me having to do anything. You can set up default reminders as well in the settings page, so you don't have to go in all the time and say, hey, remind me when this is due. So again, task management system, incredibly impactful. Very easy to add deadlines. I click add task. I see this new task. I can just say new deadline, right? Name it whatever you want with a priority, with a due date. Say this one's due in March 6th. Set it up, assign it to someone at my company. I can search within the company for Julianne. I can assign people who are watching it. Let's say I myself am sort of wanting to see what's happening with this task. And again, I can set up tags. And this is just another way to sort of track classifications and run reports. So let's say this is a sampling event. Now I can then look up all of my sampling events coming up over the near term. So again, very simple way to track upcoming deadlines all in one central place. You can also see all of your notifications in one place. So this is for my Shelter Haven engineering project. If I wanted to see all my notifications, I can say this upcoming task for a biannual certification submittal, right? This was it's coming up on May 5th, 2025. I know that I'm ahead of time. I can store documents, I can store receipts, design docs, whatever it is. And again, you don't have to hunt down all these different folders on your N drive or on your computer. You come into your Aldoa, whatever software you're using, you have one central place to look for all of your documents, right? Again, going back to the homepage just quickly, I can see all of my projects. I just showed you what it looks like inside of a project. There's a lot of things that also aren't project specific, right? I talk about CRM. Let me see all of my contacts that I've ever dealt with, clients, subcontractors, defining sort of what end market they're in, right? I can look at individuals and see exactly who my points of contact are. And it's very easy to find someone, right? I was just talking about the Shelter Haven company. I can search Shelter Haven LLC. I can see company name, types, phone numbers, emails, addresses. Here you can see a note that the client needs subcontractor receipts attached to every invoice. I can see points of contacts and employees at that company. And I can also see the projects that they're associated with very quickly. Project numbers, names, descriptions. This is really lightweight. It's also what a lot of businesses need. You don't have to go overboard with all of this. Again, all of the tasks that we've talked about, you can see them on a calendar view, and we can push this calendar into Microsoft Outlook. I think that one of sort of the unsung heroes of the software landscape is integrations. We live in a world where, and again, one of our visions of a company is to try and be as all-in-one as possible without sacrificing on any piece of that, right? We want to be able to help you with project management, financial management. We're building tools that are leveraging artificial intelligence to sort of help with the field data collection side of things and the generation of technical reports. But at the end of the day, a lot of businesses are still going to use Excel. They're still going to use Outlook. A lot of smaller shops are still going to use QuickBooks, right? And we've tried to build the system to speak and play nice with as many of these outside systems as possible. So anything you're doing in Aldoa can push to Microsoft Outlook. Anything you're doing in Aldoa can push to QuickBooks, both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. I know QuickBooks Online is sort of the go-to, but it might not have as much functionality as you're looking at for your business. So we've built full integrations with both of them. Again, this is just a very high-level overview of the Aldoa software, and I don't want to spend too much time in this because, candidly, I'm trying to show you best tips and practices, not just from using a software such as Aldoa, but just by instituting some rules, some guidance for your team so that you can make educated decisions, you can stay on top of your projects, and focus on the real work at hand, which is delivering quality projects to your clients on time and within budget. So I'll stop sharing, and I guess I'll end it with that. I'll keep it sort of a quick 30 minutes. Next time, we can sort of talk a little bit more deeply into when I talk about staying within budget, what that means, right? I think everyone knows what that means on a surface level, but what are the best tips and tricks to know how much of your budget is spent in real time, how much is remaining by phase, by sub-phase, especially when you're using sort of these, call it horizontal tools that weren't built for project-based work or task-based work. So yeah, I'll cut it there. A good little 30-minute chunk. I appreciate everyone tuning in to the second episode of the Aldoa Edge. Again, we'll be here every week on Thursdays, and we'll be deep diving into a lot of these topics that hopefully are really helpful for you running your professional consulting and engineering business, whether you're a business owner, project manager. We have plenty of topics planned for sort of field techs and staff scientists and staff engineers down the road as well. So stay tuned and looking forward to seeing you next week.